Excuse me. Could we cut the chatter, please? Before we start the meeting, I'd like everyone to confirm that they've silenced their cell phones. If you're expecting an important call, please set the ring to vibrate. Keep your phone on you and leave the room to take the call. I also ask that you be courteous to whoever is speaking and only one person speak at a time until we adjourn the meeting. We record our meetings as part of our record keeping. If there are a lot of side conversations going on, disrupts the flow of the meeting and impairs the flow of the recording. It makes it really hard for Shar to do a transcript of the meeting. There's a sign-up sheet here over here.
It's right here.
Shar's got it. Okay. So if it's your first time, please sign in with your contact info. If you've been here before, you can just check your name off on the list. Have a few short announcements before turning the meeting over. Neighbor to Neighbor is this Saturday at 8:15. This location, 10603 Southeast Henderson. We meet for breakfast in the quad next door, and then we disperse out to our various projects. Our group does cleanups at West Rock weekly. So for September, we have them the 15th, 21st, and 28th at 7:30 a.m. And that's at 9935 Southeast Woodstock Court. And we get paid by West Rock as primarily PR work, I think, but they pay us to do the little neighborhood cleanup, and that gives us money to do the things that we do in the community. And we can always use volunteers for that. The usual suspects are 4 or 5 people that show up every week to do it, but we'd always welcome the help. Then Sunday, September 15th is the VFW breakfast at the American Legion Hall. I always trip over that. 8329 Southeast 89th Avenue. And this is to support the VFW, and it's a monthly event. That's a great group of folks there. We just get together and have breakfast with them and enjoy ourselves. So we have flyers for anyone who might want to take one to a neighbor who's interested in learning about us or might want to come to a meeting. Feel free to take several. We also have pocket phone directories of important numbers similar to our key call list. Information for RID and magnets for recycling questions. We also have street routes, Rose City resources, and postcards on how to get your backyard habitat certification. And we bring different flyers each month. We have a sign-up sheet for the Thanksgiving turkey drive for needy families. We've done, for the past 2 years, we've done it for 25 families, and we're going to double down and go for 50 this year. And so we need volunteers to help with the deliveries to the families and schools. Now that all of the housekeeping's done, it's my great pleasure to welcome back Daryl Turner, and President of the PPA, and Angela Orr, Director of Communication, and also welcome Chris Davis, Assistant Chief of Operations. And I'll turn the meeting over to you folks. And
thank you.
All right. Well, it looks like you brought visual aids, so maybe you should go first.
I did. I brought visual aids. So what we want to do is I want to show you a video, and I think the video will segue into questions that AC Davis and I can answer. I want to tell you about AC Davis a little bit. I trained him, so I'm an underachiever, I guess, because he's an assistant chief. But I didn't get rid of him. I felt bad for him. I felt compassionate, so we kept him on the bureau and brings him. And he actually
How do you feel about that now, Daryl?
I'm telling you, he actually sat next to me on the executive board for years too. So he's somebody I confide in about information. We talk to each other a lot. Have a great communication. Have a great relationship. And so if we give each other, if I poke at him here, it's not because we don't like each other. It's actually we're that close. We're almost like, I won't say as close as brothers because he never invited me over any barbecues, but but we are fairly close. And so if we give each other a hard time, it's no kind of indication that we don't like each other. So actually, I'm very fond of them. So. Okay?
You've grown on me a lot too, Daryl.
like moss. But we want to show you a video. If I could ask you to watch the video and then I'll answer some questions later, and you'll kind of get the flavor of the video as it goes along. If Angela, if you'll start the video for us.
Working in this community for 28 years, I'm invested in the community. It first started with the budget cuts of social services, the budget cuts of mental health services, the budget cuts of addiction services. And once that happened, there were more people out on the street. We're spending $100 million a year in Portland, Oregon, and we still have 2,100 people unsheltered on the streets, and probably as many as 16,000, maybe more, people who are homeless.
This is our city. This is where my kids are growing up. It's where my mother still lives, and my friends. And we are all astounded. The cities have this facility and been unable to figure out how to use it when we are struggling with people on the street. And it breaks my heart to see anyone in distress in this community. And we're not seeing the leadership that I think we expect. Artificial intelligence having a devastating effect. We grew 200,000 jobs, I think it was in July. 200,000 jobs disappeared for 55 and older.
What we've discovered is because unemployment is a key contributor to being homeless, and because we still do have discriminatory practices with people who are finding it difficult to find jobs, our work is even more important to make sure that we're addressing those populations in a responsible way.
There's a continuum of problems and a continuum of need from really bad, like chronically homeless, mentally ill, with a criminal record, to people who are just about to become homeless because $993 a month of Social Security won't keep them in their home.
The whole idea of triage just is not happening. You know, we're using this title, which is, gosh, people are homeless, or they're houseless. It's the houseless community. But really within that, there's a lot of different reasons why people are houseless. What we need to do is we need to spend time figuring out, talking to them and figuring out what their reasons are and how they can be uplifted from the street.
At 2:30 in the morning, when somebody either is in mental health crisis or just needs help, and somebody calls the police, calls 911, that person's in mental health crisis, I don't have a facility to take them to. I have to take them to a hospital emergency room. After 2 hours, the hospital emergency room is not set up to be a mental health drop-off. It's meant to be an emergency room for people with emergencies. Once they ask the magic words, they get that person settled down, they release them. The hospital's 3 to 4 miles away from where I picked this person up. It's 4:30 in the morning, it's raining, it's dark. All their property was left where they were at because we can't transport all their property. So now this person has to walk all the way back to where their property was. Most of it is gone. And then, of course, the vicious cycle again is 2 to 3 weeks later, I get called at 2:30 in the morning, the same person, but now they're upset because they know what's going to happen when I take them to the hospital. We're creating this vicious circle ourselves because we have no other resources, we have no other outlets to be able to provide to people.
I was approached by my landlord. He wanted me to do things that were not appropriate sexually. I was not okay with that. I started getting eviction notices. Saying I didn't have any money to, for the moving costs. Just one thing can go wrong in your life.
Well, I first got personally involved in homelessness because of a trip to San Antonio. I read about and decided to visit a place called Haven for Hope, because it turned out to be probably one of the most successful programs in the country. And what they have is a campus, and they have the service providers. They have probably the highest success rate.
And a place like this that can hold this many people, that can bring help to so many people, some people just want to know that they're okay, that they have somewhere to sleep, there's somewhere safe for them to go. Some people, that's all they want. When people get clean and they change their lives and they're no longer homeless anymore, and when they're doing better things with their life, you wouldn't know. I don't think you would look at me and think, oh, look what she's been through, or I wonder what horrible things have happened in her life, I wonder what struggles she's been through. You wouldn't know, because I'm not that person anymore. I was doing things I said I would never do, in situations I said I would never be in. It wasn't living, it was just making it through every day, but I didn't care if I did or not. I've always had a desire to help people, especially people who have been places that I've been. I want to use the experiences that I've been through for something positive.
There are people in our communities that are vulnerable. There are people who need help. There are people who can't help themselves many times, and they need our help.
20 years ago, we all approved a $58 million bond measure to build a low, intense holding facility. How for 20 years the county could not figure out how to use this amazing facility is beyond me. So we thought this might be an interesting industrial site, and they wanted to start this program with 100 women, 100 men in separate wings. There are 9 wings, each have 18 or 20 bathrooms, showers, classrooms, athletic areas. It's got 10,000 feet of administrative area. It's got medical receiving areas. It's got radiology equipment there, dental equipment. I mean, it's all set to go.
The reason that Volunteers of America has been very much invested in trying to open up a community wellness center, which is repurposing the Wapato Jail, which we don't need, which has never been used, which is a wonderfully constructed building, to open that up as a community wellness center where we have a professional intake center, where when people are brought to the center by the police department, we can immediately start talking about how we can temporarily provide them with shelter, but then also see what their needs are in terms of employment, see what their needs are in terms of health care, see what their needs are in terms of mental health counseling. Is there a need for addiction treatment? We do not have a professional intake center in our community. That would be the first step in this community wellness center. We want to have an addiction treatment center. We know that this is a population, many of the people are using drugs on the street. We want to address that. We also want to have an employment counselor. What kinds of tasks do we need to have this person engaged in if we're going to get them ready for employment?
And we are all astounded that the cities have this facility and been unable to figure out how to use it when we are struggling with people on the street. Maybe it's not perfect for some aspect of the homeless, but for abused women and kids that need a place to go for 3 months or 6 months.
If I was a kid and my mom didn't have the money and was on the street, I'd feel much more comfortable being there than I would on the side of the road somewhere or sleeping in a car. I came from a very, very poor background. My mom was a secretary for the Educational Service District. She was a single mom. She had epilepsy, so she couldn't drive. There are times where I think my mom just didn't know how we were going to be able to survive and have a place to live. So I understand what that fear is, because kids pick up on that when they're smaller. If people need services, and we can get services to them via shuttle or however we do it, that we should be looking at any place like Wapato.
We bought it based on land value. The rate we're going will probably be next few months moving ahead to demolish the building, because I can't keep spending $50,000 a month in holding costs just to keep it there waiting for the light to go off in the public sector. And so we've got people freezing in the street, sleeping in the street, dying on the street. We got a facility that we, the community, paid for that no one can figure out how to use.
Transportation is simply an issue we need to resolve. Unfortunately, on our board of directors, the Volunteers for Oregon Board of Directors, we have an expert who said we will solve that problem. We will make transportation services available 24/7. If we have that kind of a commitment and that kind of resource, people will go to services that they believe they need.
Who is it that says that all these homeless folks and some of these folks have to be right downtown in the city center? I mean, when is there a balance between the merchants downtown that every day comes in and people are sleeping and defecating on their front door? What are the rights of the other folks in the community that are paying taxes, that are working hard, trying to make a living? There has to be a balance here.
I've worked in this community for 28 years as a public servant. So I have an investment in this community. I have an investment to see this community successful. I have an investment to see that they have all the resources that they possibly can have. And I care about this community. This was a place that was going to be used to incarcerate people. Yet now, it's a place that we have the ability to give people their freedom, to give people self-esteem, a successful off-ramp back into life, and be able to mainstream back into life, in a way that they thought they never would be able to do again.
A homeless person simply has been on hard times, and we need to use first our smarts, then our resources and our commitment to each other to be able to solve this problem. We'll be supporting social service organizations, but most importantly, we'll be supporting families. We'll be supporting families with their kids to get back on track.
So we need new ideas, new thoughts, and we need a whole community of folks to do this.
We need the leadership to help coalesce us and bring us together and show us how we can all work towards solving this problem. That's what's missing in this community now. There's that statement, too much is given, much is expected. There's room for all of us to contribute and help others. It's such a huge need.
So, as you can see, although we've been talking about Wapato for a long time, it's not out of the realm of reality. Jordan Schnitzer, who was in our video, who's the owner of Wapato, he bought Wapato for, I'm going to say around $5 to $6 million. I don't know the exact price. I don't think he'll divulge the exact price, but it was about a 90% discount from what the taxpayer had paid for it initially, not counting the maintenance that the taxpayers paid over the years to keep it open with no one there. You can see those pictures are recent. Those are like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago pictures. Those are not like when it was brand new, first open. This place is pristine. It is open bay. It has only a few holding cells, and that's just when people first come in. And it's not even cells, they're holding rooms. So it's not out of the realm of reality to be able to use Wapato. All the people in this video, besides myself, of course, because I'm just a normal person, but the rest of them were heavy hitters. I mean, these are people who are heavy hitters in the community, heavy hitters in the business world. Kay Turan, who is the CEO of Volunteers of America, she wrote out a whole plan, a whole vision, and gave it to Jordan Schnitzer, and that's what got him motivated to be able to offer this facility to the city, to the county at just cost. At just cost of whatever it costs to maintain it, to keep it open. That was it. That's all he wants from the city. One of the other people in the video, Don Mazziotti, like he said, we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars every year. This facility can facilitate 600 people. It can facilitate in an 8-hour day with people taking 30-minute showers, over 1,000 showers a day for people who are in this facility. I understand that a lot of people, not a lot, a small percentage of the houseless, homeless population, whatever you want to say, are resource resistant. Okay, they're the people we can deal with in a different way. But the people who need resources, a place like Wapato would offer them the resources. And I don't mean to use it this way because actually they're in trouble, Fred Myers, with unions, but be like a one-stop shopping. Social services, medical services, dental services, addiction services, as well as veteran services, youth services. The campus was built, Wapato was built the way it is built, is actually, the infrastructure was built for 3 more buildings like the one you saw. So they can build more buildings on there. Right now that facility can hold 500 to 600 people. It's open bay, has 2 different levels, like he said, several bathrooms, several showers. It's no excuse why the city, the county didn't use it. In 2003 or 2, whenever it was, when they asked for the money for Wapato, they asked the voters, they asked the taxpayers, people like you and me that roll up our sleeves every day and go to work and pay our taxes so that we can have an infrastructure to be able to supply resources to people that need those resources, so they're not out on the streets, so they're not in our neighborhoods, so they're not places they shouldn't be, but getting the resources they need. And that's what we pay our taxes for. They never used it as a low-level prison. So now we want to repurpose it, use it as an intake facility. You saw the one they had in San Antonio. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars to build a new facility like that. That model could be Wapato. Rename it, repurpose it, get transportation out to it. If you can get 500 to 600 people in there, that also frees up resources in other shelters in the city, other resources in the city, as well as frees up resources in the jail to then be able to deal with the people that do need to be prosecuted because they're not dealing with the other people who are at low level, who are low level drug possessions, low level trespasses, low level drinking in public, and things like that. That could be dealt with at a place like the wellness center, the community wellness center. Which would it be renamed the community wellness center? That's where it could be. It would be open 24/7 for law enforcement to be able to take people there, so we don't run into the problem of picking up somebody at 2:30 in the morning, taking them to a Good Samaritan Hospital from the Burnside Bridge, which is 2 to 3 miles away from there. And then when they get released at 4:30 in the morning, they have to walk back there in the cold and the rain. And then the next time I see them, they're a little bit more agitated, a little bit more anxiety, and maybe even violent because they know that this is a vicious circle that's going to happen again. And somebody called for help for them. Commissioner Hardesty will say we should have not the police picking people up, but somebody else. People call 911 for a reason. Okay? They call 911 for a reason. We don't know just because somebody's in a mental health crisis doesn't mean they're not scared. Doesn't mean they're not alone. Doesn't mean they don't need someone to make sure they're secure too, as well as the people who deal with them. And with a place like Wapato, an intake like Wapato that we can take people to, they can get their dignity back. They can build onto Wapato. They can build a bigger facility and have people be able to be there and to be safe and to be comfortable and to be taken care of the way they should be taken care of.
Who's dragging their feet on not wanting this done?
So to go back, and I know you know the history, so I'm just being redundant. The county decided to sell this building without asking the voters. They asked you for the money, but they didn't ask you when they sold it.
Yeah.
Because they sold that at a 90% discount.
Yeah.
Anybody sitting in their house, sitting down getting ready to vote would say, I don't think we'll be selling that for $5 or $6 million. I think we'll be repurposing it for something else. So I think that's where it started. How do we get it? Jordan Schnitzer, who owns Wapato, this is the man who you saw in this video that said, I don't know how in 20 years they couldn't find a way to repurpose this. And he's still waiting. He's spending $50,000 a month hoping that the county, that the city would say, hey, we want to use this land. We want to use this facility. And all they have to do is pay the cost of the maintenance cost to keep it open. The $50,000 basically, I think, was he's paid. Now, granted, there's going to be money that they'll have to pay to retrofit it, and we don't know the exact price. It could be $25 million. It could be $30 million. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year in this city. You see what's going on in our neighborhoods. You see what's going on around our freeways and the underpasses. People don't want to be out in the cold. They don't want to be wet. They don't want to be without services. This is a place where they could get them. And if this is not a place for them to get services, it also is a resource for them to send them places where they can get those services. But it alleviates the pressure on a lot of the other social services out there. It alleviates the pressure for the Multnomah County Jail, because that you cannot criminalize homelessness. You can't criminalize mental illness. You can't even criminalize addiction, really. What you can do is have a resource to be able to alleviate some of that pressure. We will never be able to get rid of homelessness. Homelessness has been around for hundreds of years. Cavemen were homeless. They moved from place to place. So it's not going to go away. What we can do is alleviate it. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars, like Don Mazziotti said, on these facilities, on these resources, on these programs. But when we hear about our elected officials talking about it, we don't hear them saying, how much are we going to spend on the livability of neighborhoods in our city? How much are we going to spend on the streets? How much are we going to spend to keep the streets clean? Part of that is being able to have a place for people to go so that you can do those things, and you can do it with dignity for them, because moving them from doorway to doorway, from one end of Springwater Trail to the other end of Springwater Trail does not help. Okay? That's what we've been doing for years and years and years. And we don't have that resource. They tried the Unity Center, which was a small facility to take people with mental illness. That didn't work out. The reason why it didn't work out is because you have to be able to have all the resources available at a place where people can go. And that needs to happen. And it's still a possibility. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I know things have been quiet, but this video was taken about a month ago. So Jordan Schnitzer, I've met with a group of people. Jordan Schnitzer's one of them, and he's been proactive about, I need to get this place repurposed.
I can't see them tearing it down.
So, yes, sir.
Have you seen 407 Seattle's like how back in Northeast they have a working solution. They have a working solution that you do your drugs, we're going to do your time. And you get off drugs, you're going to do time.
Correct.
So that's the Northeast solution. My opinion is that they do not want to solve the problem.
Yeah.
They want to basically, in my opinion, they want to sweetify Portland, which will turn into into Detroit. Because first little kid that steps on the needle, first person gets attacked at the doorway, someone's set on fire. Violence is coming. You need to get rid of mayor. You need to take away the imperialness of the mayor, that he cannot be the city council, he cannot be the commissioner and the mayor at the same time. They need to get rid of the gimmick, which is the chief, because ask her, why is she not in Oakland? What's going on in Berkeley? Where Berkeley does not have enough officers. Why is we cannot get enough officers? And Oregon, you can't smoke pot and have a gun issue to you. And all that. We have 100 other cases, only 3 made it through this first round.
And I think that's a problem that we can't, it's so overwhelming that it takes a lot more, but what it does take is like people in this room. Now I realize there's maybe 25 people in this room, but when you tell 25 other people, and Angela has a sign-up sheet right here, if you want to sign up, put down your email address, we'll send you the video so you can show it to other people. Because there's never going to be, I am not going to sit up here, and I'm number one, I'm not a politician. I'm not going to sit here and tell you we have solved homelessness. That's not what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is there are resources available that will help us alleviate the pressure of that on us in the neighborhoods, on the resources that are out there, and on other things that is not being done because our leaders are looking out for their pet projects, and the pet projects are not making money for the city. We have brought in record tax revenues the last 2 to 3 years. Record tax revenues. That's money that you and I pay in Multnomah County, that some people who live in Portland pay, that go every day to work, roll up their sleeves, pay their taxes, and all they expect is to have a safe city, a clean city, and a place with resources for people who need those resources, and for those who are resource resistant, to be able to deal with them the way we have to deal with them. So, yes, ma'am.
So I talked to a well-established developer, Marty Coe, and he said he wants you to run for mayor. And
I'm too old and too smart, and I like that. At 60 years old, number one, I'm going to retire in a year and a half, and I love my job that I have here. And when I'm done, I'm done. But I do love the city, and that's why I've stayed so long. Because I told people 25 years in a day, and here I'm on year 28, and I'm hanging on for another year and a half at least. So, yes.
So I'm former Roic. My name is Christy Penny, and I just had lunch today with Kurt Erickson, who's also former Roic, and we actually said we were going to vote for you for mayor.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Juanita. I'm a retired person, and I've worked with Don directly and with Bruce Warner. These are really heavy hitters. These are people that can give you solutions. And I'm wondering, do you guys have like some sort of coalition?
We do.
To work with George? And I would like to know like where that's going, because I know Bruce has got a real heart for people, and so does Don. And we've done a lot of infrastructure to get Swakatoa where it is.
Yes.
And it's frustrating. I live in Lents too. I'm concerned about what's going on. There's some other things that I'd like to give to you two before you leave.
Definitely.
That's happened in this neighborhood just this week. And it's the safety of our children that I also want to address. And this little flyer I'm going to give you is about an incident that's happened. So, but I'm really interested about getting people services and utilizing the building that we paid millions to get.
This building is pristine.
And I don't understand why you
$5 to $6 million. $5 to $6 million, you'd be arrested in most states for buying it for that much.
But I'm wondering, like, what's happening with this group of people that's talking together.
And some of the stuff I can't talk about, not because I don't want to, but because I don't have carte blanche to sit. But I will tell you, we've met more than once in a large group, and there's a lot of people who are in there, like I said, heavy hitters, and George Schnitzer is leading the pack. He owns it, but again, he's also a businessman, and he can't keep it forever, and he can't be the one who says, I'm going to give you $35 million or $25 million to open this place up. That has to be the city, the county, our elected officials. They have to get together, get in a room, put their egos at the door, and say, we have to try this because it's a viable solution to relieve some of that. Like I said, we will never get rid of homelessness. It's been around forever.
It's getting terribly terrible.
But when you can take 500 to 600 people and have a facility that can give them all the resources they need, or outsource them to resources if they can avail those resources to them, that is a huge, huge asset to a city like Portland.
Or what happens when they don't accept help and they just want to live out?
Well, then there's the people who are resource resistant, like I said, and depending on the kind of help they need.
How that's going to be remedied as well.
Well, people who are resource resistant, the ones who are committing crimes, the system will have to deal with them. The criminal system will deal with that. But the good part about it is you don't have all these people going for the low-level crimes because they're going to choose, okay, do I go to jail or do I go to Wapato? The community wellness center. I'm going to the community wellness center. I'm going to be clean. I'm going to take a shower every day. I'm going to get my dental and medical needs taken care of, social services needs taken care of. And sooner or later, once the word gets out, more people are going to want to come in. And so it's going to be a resource for people to be able to go to. Sure, you're going to have the percentage of people that are resource resistant. We have that in our community no matter what. We're always going to have that, but that's where the criminal justice system will take care of that. But it'll be greatly reduced because they're not just taking people in because they're at low-level crimes and they have nowhere else to go. So our criminal justice system is the largest intake facility for people with mental health issues in the state, in the city, in the county, and that shouldn't be that. So I can't remember who was next. I think you were next.
I have a question. Where do we go to get the police officers' rights back? Yeah, because I mean,
right on.
Several people in this room have heard my story, and I'm dwelling on it. I'm irritated, not by Portland PD. Officer, or somebody comes in my home, officer arrests them, home invasion, burglary, breaking and entering, trespassing. Tells us, make sure you talk to the DA.
Right.
If we don't have a victim, we don't have charges. We do that, DA says, we're not going to do that. It was not charged. And every time I turn around, and I call, I'm active. And it is so bad when I was going after this guy, it took a while for Portland to get there. And officer pulled up to me, he goes, there's something going on, made a call. I said, yeah, I'm going to go kill him. He said, okay. And he went the other way. And my wife
I will tell you,
they're so handcuffed. They can't do their job to protect us.
So this is what I will tell you. So, and I quote me if I'm right, in 1990, we had 436,000 people, and we had 823 sworn police officers in the city of Portland. Right now, today, 200 and some thousand more people, and we have 849 police officers, sworn police officers in the PPA, the Portland Police Association. That's rank and file from officers, sergeants, detectives, and criminals. So how can we still do PS3s? Well, how can we do the same policing we're today with 200,000+ more people and huge buildings going up all over the city, and the crime we had, the gang violence wasn't the same, the homeless population wasn't the same, the mental health issues weren't the same. How can we do that without having more people? Our city council looks at us when we ask for more officers, and they say, well, we gave you 50. Right now, the FBI did a study, and their study from 2010 says any city over 250,000 should have 2.6 officers per 1,000. We're at about 1.3, 1.4 officers per 1,000.
So with that being said, my question here is the safety of our neighborhood. I can't help but I turn on the news every single Monday, and I've actually done I've actually went out to witnesses, and we have a full task force and a plane chasing cars racing in the industrial area. And how much money did that plane cost to follow these kids around? How much? I mean, I know there's less of evil, but we have people that are being beat to death. We've got on the Springway Trail, and you know, with all honesty, I grew up in T5. Right. I raced there when I was in high school. It's almost a staple of Portland. It's not going to go away.
Right, but I think what part of the problem is it's not our command staff's fault. It's not the Portland Police Bureau's fault. We are understaffed. We are woefully understaffed, and our voters, people like you that are in here every day, have to be the ones to be the squeaky wheels and say, look at this FBI study. We have 1.4 or 1.3 officers per 1,000. This FBI study says we should have 2.6. Even at our authorized staffing, we're not going to have even 2 officers per 1,000. We're going to be at 1.8. Even at our authorized full staffing, if we have 120 vacancies right now. In August of 2020, we're going to have about 120 to 150 officers that are eligible to retire. Our contract expires June 30th of 2020. If we do not have a contract in place before, I believe, March or April of 2020, those officers who can retire, and some of them are in their early 50s, will retire and find other jobs someplace else and will not be in the city of Portland. We're hiring about 4 to 6 officers a month to fill those gaps, but there's an 18-month probationary period. Even with that, we will still be down more officers in August of 2020 than we are today. And it's command staff's job, as AC Davis will talk about a little bit in some way, it's command staff's job to figure out how to disperse everybody to equitably serve the city. It's impossible to do. They have a impossible job, and now what we have is a chief of police, who I'm going to tell you, her contract is going to run out, and somebody's going to come knocking at the door that's going to offer her more resources to be able to do the things she thinks is right to do. If we don't have the resources we need, she's gone. And I'm going to tell you this, and people will blame me for being a supporter chief. Let me tell you what, this chief is strong. She knows what she's doing, and she needs the help in this organization to be able to make it better. I don't always agree with everything, but we talk, we have our meetings, and we keep what we talk about in our meetings. We work our differences out in those meetings, and like I do with AC Davis. I sit down with him. I sat down with him today about something he thought I was going to say you're crazy for, and I actually said, I agree.
I wrote that down.
He wrote that down because he knows. But the whole point is that we have to go to our elected officials. I understand the city council meetings are on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock, and mostly everybody here is at work or running their businesses or doing whatever they do. But the squeaky wheels get there, so we don't need more police. We don't need police doing these certain jobs. If we don't have that happen, we see what's happening to the city. In 2006, even before the big recession, the city was growing. It was doing the right things. It was growing the right way. After the recession, after Occupy and some other things, we started to see everything go downhill, and we're going downhill fast. And we're becoming a national news story, and that's not the way we want to be a national news story.
We're living it.
So I'm going to go to the lady behind you, Craig, and then I'll get you.
Hi, I just had a question. What is keeping the taxpayers from banding together and filing a class action lawsuit against the city to appropriate those funds to Wapato?
Well, it's the city or the county.
Yeah.
And what taxpayers have to do is they have to go to those county meetings, they have to go to those meetings, and they have to force our elected officials. As much as I can speak, or anybody on this video here, even George Stitcher who owns it can speak and say he doesn't understand this, he's at a loss, he feels guilty for even buying it. But he's a businessman too. It has to be you. You're the taxpayers. You're the people who pay the taxes. You bought Wapato but they sold it. Like I said, at about a 90% discount. How many people in here who own a business would sell their business at a 90% discount? Anybody here who would sell their house at a 90% discount? Or their car at a 90% discount? Because if you try to sell me your house at a 90% discount, I'm looking for the termites. I'm looking for the carpenter ants. I'm looking for the foundation that's crumbling. Craig.
Well, I just want to say that the choice is clear. Either we utilize a facility like Wapato, or we cover the city in boulders.
Yeah.
That's it.
So anyway, I want to give AC Davis a chance to talk about some things too. But our staffing issues are catastrophic right now. We need more police officers. The only way we can get there, they will say, this is what they will say, the police union is greedy. We want to pay officers more money and get them more benefits so that we can get richer.
Aren't
it's
you
not
firing felons now?
no.
Oh.
That's not the truth. We have to compete with other law enforcement agencies as well as the private sector. So if you want the best and the brightest, you have to pay the best and the brightest. The city of Portland, the citizens of Portland, the residents of Portland, the businesses of Portland deserve the best and the brightest. And the only way we can get them is for you to support us in our contract. We are not greedy people. We're not going to get greedy, but we need to be able to attract the best and the brightest. And that's the only way we can do it. We're going to lose people in our background investigation phase because they're not. But also other agencies are hiring people and people are going, well, I can go to Portland. It takes me a long time to get hired, or I can go here. So they're streamlining they're going to streamline the hiring process, not downgrade it, but streamline it. But also, what we have to understand is we have a political backdrop in this city. I'm going to say it. We have a political backdrop in the city that I'm going to tell you. My son is a criminal justice major at Western Oregon University, and the first thing he told me is, I'm going to become a Portland police officer. I go, son, you don't need to do that. He goes, good enough for you, good enough for me. So I can't argue with him, but the whole point is I have some concerns because it's not the same police work that I started when I was working. It's not the same police work that when Chris started. It's not the same police work when Rob or Hank started. It's not the same police work. It's not. And it's the political backdrop that causes that. We have to change that. We have to bring it back to the citizens, to the people who are the residents, for your protection. We have to make sure that you're protected. We're proactive in your neighborhoods. We're able to get out of our police cars and walk around. You can ask Chris, I walk my district almost every day in Old Town. And it came to a point where we were so short that I had to say, okay, 1 o'clock I can't go out of my car anymore and walk around. At 10 o'clock I can't go out of my car every day and walk around. That should not be done. We should be able to get out in our neighborhoods, learn who the people are in our neighborhoods, be able to know the good and the bad people, and be proactive in these neighborhoods. And we're not able to do it because we don't have the staffing, and the political backdrop in the city is causing that problem. It's not always the wages. It's the political backdrop, because if we pay more, Forrest Gump is telling people, you want to work for us, you want to work for Portland. You're going to make less, but you'll be happy. You know, Hillsborough, you want to work for us? Washington County, you want to work for us? We are dealing with not just competing with the other law enforcement agencies in the state and in the region. We are also dealing with the private industry. We are the largest agency between Seattle and San Francisco. We should be the best agency between Seattle and San Francisco, and we're better than Seattle.
Well, the question is this: we had funding from the FBI under Secure City program, and our mayor left it here. My question to you is: will ICE be allowed to go to WAPO? Yes or no?
Say that again?
Will ICE be allowed to go to WAPO? Yes or no?
Those are decisions above my head.
I mean, that's it's basically it, because we have, without ICE, you're going to have a lot of people on the second resources that do not belong here, and with the mayor's dictation and his opinion on that, we had even a judge look at our way for ICE.
And what I do is I follow the law, and we tell our members to follow the law. If the law is one thing, that's what we follow. If we don't agree with the law, we try to change the laws, but we don't not follow the laws. Okay, that's just part of life. I will say one thing, and I'm not trying to upset you back there. We're all immigrants. All of our families came from someplace, somehow, somewhere. Whether we were forced to be here as immigrants, or whether we came here on our own as immigrants, all of us somehow, someway, were immigrants. So there needs to become a policy that's fair to everybody here. And we don't have that right now because there's too much bipartisanship. Okay? But we have to follow the laws as police officers, and we will follow the laws. But we still need leadership that understands that there are laws to be followed, and their political agenda should not overbound the laws.
Amen.
So, how about it, Killer?
So the list that was going around, there will be a lot more information, like the coalition that he was talking about. There is a groundswell of support and grassroots effort. So if you sign up on that, we will make sure that we are getting information out to you.
And I left some of my cards on the table. You can ask Craig, he texts me, call me personally. I have no problem with that. I'm 24/7. The only thing I say is, it is football season. Yeah. It's Monday night football, Thursday night football, Saturday, Sunday football. So.
Thursday night.
Actually, I answer my phone 24/7 no matter what. So don't hesitate to call me. I'll leave my cards here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You gonna let us know if you change your mind about the mayor thing?
I'm too old.
How do you follow that? So, you know, as far as I know Don and Homer as well. I worked with them when I was at Central Precinct on their original Harbor of Hope idea. I know that the program that they talked about down in Texas has been very successful. Because we talked to some people back then when we were having that conversation down there, and you know, it's not appropriate for me to weigh in on political matters, obviously, and I'm going to be respectful of that fact, but you know, I think it is fair to say that some kind of solution other than doing things that aren't working is in all of our interests. And so, you know, I do know from my own professional dealings, especially with Homer and Don, that they're passionate about this and they're serious about it. So Daryl talked about a couple of things that, if it's helpful to you, I think I can shed some light on. One is our staffing issue. And what I like to I love to come to meetings like this because I hear things about our staffing issues, and most of the time, most people in the community understand our staffing issues pretty well, but I want to maybe clarify your understanding of the staffing crisis in the Portland Police Bureau right now. So as Daryl mentioned, you know, the way I like to put it is in the last 20 years or so, we've added about the population of Salem to Portland, and we've subtracted its entire police department. That's the way I like to look at that. But there's actually two elements to the staffing crisis right now. One is just filling the vacancies that we have. We have 1,001 sworn positions in the police bureau right now. Of those, 849 are PPA members. So those are our police officers, our sergeants, our criminalists, and detectives. Those are the sworn folks who provide service in the community every day. While I'm here, I want to take a moment and just point out that that's not all of our organization. We've actually got about 1,270 authorized positions in the police bureau. The balance of those are among our professional staff who aren't sworn officers, but those people perform missions that are every bit as important to our mission in the police bureau as the sworn side of the house. And among that group, we've got about a 13% vacancy rate right now. We've got about 40 open, what we call non-sworn or professional staff positions. So the staffing crisis is across the board. And the difference between that 849 and 1,001 is all the non-PPA sworn members like me, and some of my friends in the back like Lieutenant Hayes and Captain Dobson around here someplace. Those are our lieutenants, our captains, our commanders, and those of us in the chief's office. So crisis one is we've got 1,001 authorized positions, and 120 of those are vacant, and we're having a very hard time filling those. There's a lot of theories as to why that is. Police work in general right now, actually as big cities go, our staffing problem in terms of vacant positions that we're having trouble filling is about the median for large cities. There are some cities that it has gotten so bad that officers are fleeing, you know, some major cities for agencies in the suburbs, frankly, at a rate so fast. There's one very large agency in the South I heard about a while back that people were still getting paychecks who didn't work there anymore because they were leaving so fast the city couldn't keep up with the paperwork. So that's, I guess the good news is it's not as bad as that, but it's not sustainable. And what we have seen over a very long period of time as Portland's population increases, guess what? So does demand for police service because there's more people here. More people, more problems. It's a weird relationship, right? But that is how it works. And so, so the other issues that we deal with in the police bureau is we, as a leadership of the organization, right now we struggle with making this an attractive job for people, frankly, because if you're the kind of person we're looking for, who's a self-motivator, who's smart, who's got maybe some life experience, who's got common sense, who makes good decisions, we're not the only people who want to employ you, right? We have to compete with every other business and public sector entity on earth. We've got record low unemployment in some places in this country right now. And so people have other options besides police work. And part of our problem is we're not hiring just anybody, right? We want what Daryl described. We want the best people to come out here and serve you in the community. The good news about how selective we are is that we tend to have really high quality police officers in this city. We do not have the problems with corruption and with police misconduct that some other cities have experienced. I have a friend who's an assistant chief. He has my job in the city of New Orleans. Ask him about some of the issues they've dealt with, and they've actually turned it around really well there. But so when you try to attract those kind of people, what we've learned is those kind of self-motivated people want to work in an environment where they feel supported, where they feel valued, where they have time to do the kind of work that they believe in doing. And so that's a challenge for us. It's just how it is. And We also struggle with our hiring process, and that is something actually we have some control over. And that brings me to the issue that somebody brought up about lowering our standards for police officers. Okay, so we have not lowered our standards for police officers. We have, what we did was, specifically, we looked at 2 policies. One was our requirement that you have a certain amount of college education to be a police officer. We'll start with that one. So we've got a lot of people in our organization right now who were hired before we implemented any requirement for college at all, who've served here as police officers for a really long time, and some really phenomenal people who've got a huge body of work behind them. And college education had, or lack thereof, had no impact on their ability to deliver police service in our city. And we realized that that requirement was really in a lot of ways an arbitrary requirement. That doesn't mean we don't still do a background investigation on everybody who we are looking at hiring. And if they can't pass our background investigation because they don't meet our background standards, because they have moral fitness issues that we can't get them certified as a police officer in this state, we're not hiring them. We're not going to hire problem people just for the sake of getting people in the door. You have my commitment on that. I'm going to get to you, I promise. The other one we looked at was tattoos, because we had another policy that says that you couldn't have visible tattoos, I think it was above the neck. I'll give you an example, and I'm going to try to give this without talking out of school, of the kind of situation that we have dealt with in the past. We have had applicants in the past who looked great. You look at their resume, you look at their history, their work history, you interview them, and they're great, and we want to hire them, but they have tattoos maybe behind their ear, for example, that they're having trouble getting removed because they're even willing to get rid of these tattoos to get the job here, but they're having trouble getting them removed. This is, I'm paraphrasing an actual situation that we dealt with. Why are we not hiring that candidate? Now, if they have something offensive tattooed across their forehead, we probably are going to learn some things about that person and their background if we do our jobs right that might be even better indicators of what we're really looking for when we do a background investigation, because what we're looking for is how big of a risk are we taking with you and your safety by giving this person police officer authority and a gun in a police car, and a lot of independence, and put them out in the community. I'm not trying to be flippant. That really is what we're looking at. And so some situation with a tattoo above the neck that I could never have anticipated when we made that policy, and that's the only thing that we've got the only indicator that we have about you. What does that tell me about the likelihood that you're going to go out in the community as a Portland police officer and make a decision and get good outcomes? Nothing, right? So we have not lowered our standards. We have adapted some of our standards we looked at and realized were kind of arbitrary, because we're always refining our standards as we learn more and more about what to look for to make that estimation of the risk that we're taking in employing somebody. So I feel like I covered that part. Yes, sir. You had a question you really wanted to ask.
Last March, when the city council was talking about hiring, hiring candidates, only 3 met the first tier because of that, and the chief was clueless. Like, we got marijuana. This is the chief that could understand this. Chloe, the council person, says, well, we need to reach out and invite immigrants to replace our police people. That was her actual words here.
Well, I was there, actually, for that.
Her actual words, and the thing that says is, I'm a police-minded person, but why would I go become a Portland police officer? And I look at Antifa roundups, and I'm like, I can't do anything because I'm supposed to stand out. I can go to Washington County, voting kicks my ass. The last chief we had took care of business. Again, your leadership, I know you're trying to be respectful, but she came from Oakland. How is Oakland doing? There's video footage you will look up at time and time again where police officers and police cars are being chased out of neighborhoods in Oakland. Berkeley is losing their police forces. And as I most solicitation, they had a survey in Sweden. 83% of the police force is thinking about never coming back to the job because it got that bad.
So let me, if I may, can I unpack just a little bit of that, because that actually touches on some things that I was thinking might be helpful for you, and you guys can tell me to talk about something else too, if there are other things you want me to talk about. But to your point about the 3 people passing the background check in the city council hearing, I was there actually, and here's what actually happened. So that we were talking about the PS3s, right, which are these new non-sworn folks that we're doing a pilot project with a lot of support, actually, I have to say, from PPA. To take some of the calls that on the tree, I never like to call them low-level calls, because if you're calling for one, to you, that's not a low-level thing. That's like important police service, but they're the kind of things that we don't have to send a sworn peace officer to go help you with. You know, you found property in your yard or something like that, right? And so what we were talking about was that group of people, and at that time, we had 3 people out of 60 candidates so far make it through backgrounds. However, that's because not all the backgrounds were done. And that got sort of misinterpreted and turned into this thing where we can't get anybody to pass a background check because of marijuana issues. And what I said was, and how I helped create this problem for all of us, and I'm really sorry because this is not what I was trying to do, what I was trying to say was that one of the issues that we are, as a profession, are running into these days is our standards on marijuana use, in police applicants especially. And at that time I was in the services branch, where one of my jobs is to look at all of the background investigations for everybody we hire. Had to go through me, and I had to approve them before we hired anybody. Because I'm the one who's going to get in a lot of trouble if one of these people goes bad, right? So I have more interests even than just being a community member in making sure we hire good people. So, but one of the issues that we are seeing more and more as a profession, I talk to my peers in other major cities, they're seeing this too, and they're really struggling with this back east, where they have very strict rules about marijuana, a lot of times at the state level, is as marijuana becomes legal and it becomes more and more socially acceptable, we are seeing a lot more people who have marijuana use in their history, and then they get to our background investigation and they're like, what, it's legal, why is it an issue? Well, it's an issue for a couple reasons. One is we legally can't issue you a firearm under federal firearms rules if you are classified as a drug user, which one way to get to that classification is having used marijuana within the last year. So, and we're open with this. This is the one drug standard that we can tell you about. The rest of them, I'm not going to tell you what they are, because we don't want people to game the system and tell us, oh yeah, I've only used heroin. How many times was it? Right? No, and I'm serious, because we have people who will do that. But we tell everybody right up front, if you used marijuana within the last year, please don't even apply. You've got to make a choice. You're going to use marijuana, or you're going to be a police officer. Now, what I'll tell you, and this freaks out some of my colleagues elsewhere in the country, but I'm going to tell you what I tell them about marijuana and the future of drug standards for law enforcement. Our standards, our background standards for drug use in law enforcement are really based on a moral fitness concept, right? The way it used to be, and the way we developed these standards, was the idea that if you've used marijuana more than for experimentation, for example, that speaks to your moral fitness to be a police officer. The problem with that is that the rest of society has moved away from a really moralistic view of drug use, whether for experimentation or out of habit, and are looking at it as more of a health issue. And so we really need, as a profession, to support some research into the physical and psychological effects on people of drug use, so that we can develop standards based on science, because eventually somebody's going to challenge us on one of these moral fitness type decisions, and everybody else in the world doesn't see this as a moral issue, and we're going to lose, and then we're going to have a really big problem. You see what I'm saying? So when I say that our standards evolve over time, that's why, because the world evolves over time, but we still are not going to hire people who aren't fit to be police officers. So then, and I'm going to shut up here in a minute because you probably don't want to hear me talk all night, but the other component of our staffing crisis is, even at full strength, Daryl told me I was right about something today, and so you're going to like this, because I might have to admit that you may have had a point about something. Even at full strength, we don't have enough police officers and non-sworn professional staff to meet the demand for police service in this city. We have a strategic services division that has a number of really smart statistical people in it. And they've done a lot of research for us, and I'm convinced on the basis of what I see in our performance measures and our statistics, that even at full strength, 1,001 officers and a couple hundred professional staff is not enough for a city this size. But when I go across the street and ask for more police officer positions, the first thing I hear is, well, you don't even fill the ones you have. So we have to solve that problem before we can move on to the next problem. And then the last thing I'll say, and then you got a question, is I would just point out, because I've got to give credit where it is due, that when we got those 55 new positions, that's a big deal in this city. It's not enough to right-size the Bureau, but did you know that when we got those, that budget year, the instructions we actually got from the mayor were to come up with a 5-year plan for how to right-size the Bureau. So we do have, at least our mayor gets that we need to right-size the Bureau. It's just that we also have a whole lot of other expensive things in the city that don't get done, like, how many gravel streets did I drive by on the way here? How many streets don't have sidewalks? How many streets are in such disrepair? We've got residents doing their own road work in front of their house.
Well, you're in trouble for that, though.
Yeah.
Because you do it better than the city. So.
Well, we don't like competition, but yes, sir.
Let's see if I can present this and you can give me a reply, and I'll try to keep it simple. I have a friend with a business in the Pearl District, and both Daryl and Angela have met me down there at this friend's, and she can put out all these sheets of paper of the same individual repeatedly, 12 pictures on each page. It's been arrested. Now, I got friends on the correct side of the bars down there in Inverness, and they call me up at home, and like recently with this budget thing with the county, they're telling me if this goes through and they don't find the money, then there's 3 people that are just going to be arrested and put right back out in the street. And that's auto theft, stolen property, and physical assault. And they're telling me this. They work down there. They know what's going on. And yet, look at it even now, before, and the county apparently found some money for about a year. So how's it working for the police force that we got a DA that is basically catch and release? That's what it is, catch and release, and it's not working. I mean, some of them are 70 pictures on, So
we know some of them, because some of them are people who were getting arrested back when we were working.
So what's the answer to that?
Well,
and oh, by the way, let me finish it. Down there at Inverness, they got a matrix, right? But the matrix is based on the wings that they have open. They have empty beds and wings that they don't have open, and I bet you the majority of the population doesn't know that. But that's just these people call me at home that work down there, they're telling me.
Yeah. And yes, and how does that work for us? It is a really big challenge, because when my police officers in the operations branch go out and make arrests in situations where it's appropriate, and a little known fact about arrests, there's been a lot of research done that shows that police officers actually rarely make arrests in situations where they can, because they find other options that they believe are more appropriate to the situation. But what happens is, yes, exactly what you described. And the reason for that, I think, as I see it, is a couple of things. One is a pretty historic underinvestment in public safety at the state and the county level. And what our officers get frustrated by it. Let me tell you about a frustration that we have in the chief's office, because when your friend has this problem with these people who keep coming back and creating the same problem, your friend is not calling the county, she's calling me about what are you doing about my problem, right? And it's frustrating for us because there's a lack of resources further on in the system. We're just one link in the criminal justice system. And so our sheriff's office and our district attorney in this county have experience, and we'll tell you, year after year after year of budget cuts, and I've had conversations with Mike Reese and Rod Underhill personally about the budget worries that they have, and every year it's the same conversation. Their budget is not under their control, even their elected officials. Their budget is controlled by the county commission.
Yeah.
And it's probably easier when the pressure for that decision, I'll put it this way, the pressure for that decision, I don't know that pressure always gets put on the people making the decision. It ends up getting put on us. Mm-hmm. And it puts us in a position of having to come out here and explain to all of you why you don't feel safe a lot of the time in your neighborhood. So what I would suggest as a solution is, you're a county resident too. And they're your county elected officials, and to the extent that any elected official or any public official, to the extent that my priorities don't align with yours and my work, you need to hear about it. And it's the same way for all of us in public service. And so, yeah, don't forget about the county and the state's roles in the justice system.
So I just have to say, I've attended a couple of meetings in the last couple of years, and really honestly, like Deborah Kafori, they don't care what we have to say. So we can show up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I don't care what time we show up. They don't care what we have to say. Once they're in power and they get their power in their seat, like they don't care what we have to say. It's obvious. I've seen it firsthand, and it's sickening. And so I guess it's like, yeah, I like that little pep talk, but it doesn't do anything.
Can I make another observation about why that might be?
What?
Because I spend a lot of time in all kinds of different quarters of the community, and I hear from people who are really opposed to even the thought of having more police resources or any more justice system resources, people who really believe in justice reinvestment, the Safety and Justice Challenge folks and the MacArthur Foundation that the county participates in. The difference that I see is the level of organization. The folks who believe, and I'm not going to make a value statement, they believe what they believe, and we get to do that in this country, but the folks who believe in less resources for public safety institutions are really well organized. And so they're able to get the attention because they know how to get the attention, they know what buttons to push, and they're really well organized.
But how can you avoid politics? Because that's politics right there. So you can say like, you want to keep politics aside, we can't. It is politics. That certain left-leaning whatever is organized.
Well, I can't come out here as a city employee and take a position on a purely political issue, but I can come out here and give you just my own observations of having lived in the system for a while.
You have to quit your job and become a politician. Because we all have to go to work, we don't get to go to the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to.
I like the job I have now. Yes, sir.
I talked to some of the rank and file in the field, and we have many conversations. I will tell you right now, you guys are nice. You will actually have a real conversation on real stuff. We're not busy. And I've been asking that, and they say something. But what I've seen as a model, this is a crisis point that if you do not correct this is going to come like Detroit. Anybody that can have skills is going to leave. And you think you have money problems now? Wait till your tax base goes away here. Second thing, the FBI told back in March, Antifa, because you're political, is arming up. How do we know this happened? It happened in Eugene back in April when one of their weapons officers decided to take on 2 uniformed Eugene officers at point blank range. He didn't win. 3 days later, they tried to bomb an IED at the police station in Eugene. They tried that. Had to make the news. My question to you is that if San Francisco could declare NRA a terrorist organization, yes, they did. Why cannot Portland police force at least say, hey, you know what? We need to have this talk here because we see what happened in Eugene, and you see what's coming down the line here. Because that's the reason you cannot recruit people. So we see where rank and file will not support this at front line. Essentially, I'll go to any other city, and I know they got my back. At least if you're going to sell a railroad station, you're going to sell who get your back. If you can't, recruitment is not going to happen.
Well, and we don't police ideologies. You know, there's some people with some really extreme views. But well, no, I mean we in the police bureau. do not, and we don't want to get in the business of policing ideologies, because nobody wants to live in a government where that happens. What we do police, though, is behavior. And so if somebody is possessing weapons illegally, if somebody is, certainly anybody who's going to go out and hurt somebody else, as our organization, it's our mission to go make sure that doesn't happen, or if somehow it does, we hold them accountable. And I don't care what their ideology is.
Then explain why under videotape we see Emino beaten in broad daylight. What was it? We have no arrest yet.
Yes. Well,
explain this one to me. And I'm not saying I'm asking up front, but you're going to say, like, if I'm a recruiter, like, people, as you background people should be backgrounding the police force. Like, do I actually want to?
Well, they do.
Yeah,
they do.
Doing a background search there, and the stuff is going like, no, I don't know what they're.
And I mean, I see your point, and we think that, and it's hard for us to quantify exactly what sentiment it is that causes people not to apply here. One thing I will tell you though, and I don't want to say it is because of these things, because that's a scientific statement that I'm not qualified to make, but just coincidentally, after we readjusted our education requirements, and then after the August 17th protest, we saw applications to the police bureau go way up.
Really?
I think the latest statistic I heard was like 800 or 900 applications in a month or so. So we're getting, and I'm careful putting out statistics, because then someone will go back and check. And so I'm going from memory here, but I want to say we're getting like numbers of applications in a month that we used to get in a year.
Wow.
Wow, that's great.
And we know that in the history of the police bureau, no matter what the requirements were or what's going on, we usually, about 6% of those people will actually make it all the way through the process, so that's good. Yes, sir.
I just want to say that with the city of Portland to speak before council, you have to sign up months before, and you get 3 minutes. With the county, and it seems to me that one of the best uses of our time is to speak and address the county. You can show up on Thursday morning and they begin like around 9:30. You can sign up on that day and you'll have the opportunity to address the county for 3 minutes. So it's much easier. It seems like that's a pressure point that would be important for us to utilize to get them to do something with regards to Wapato.
One other question I have, I know there's like drug zones around schools to keep drug activity down, and I'm just wondering if there's any way, or if there's been any talk about having that type of zone around where children have to walk to school. One of the biggest issues I have right now is the safety of our children, because they have to walk when most of them can't walk because of the homeless situation from our street to Kelly Elementary. And I'm just wondering, is there any talk about having any kind of a safety zone where children can just actually get into and out of school safely?
You brought that up about 3 years ago and it's just been shelved.
Really, I just think that there's a drug zone. Why wouldn't they have some sort of safety zone where they're not being approached by people? And it's a real big issue for our street and our neighborhood.
And I think what you're referring to is in the Oregon revised statutes, there's an enhancement for drug offenses that occur within 1,000 feet of a school.
Right.
And you know, I'm certainly not the smartest person in the world, and so I'm willing to admit that there are a lot of really good ideas that I have not thought of yet. That's one of them. That never occurred to me. I don't know, and I'm sure there'd be a way to work this out, how you would, because at least if you say there's an enhanced penalty within 1,000 feet of a school, your drug offender should be on reasonable notice of where the enhanced penalty kicks in. So how you would, I mean, there'd be signage issues to work through, but that's not a bad idea. That's kind of
where the bus stops are, the children get off, and it doesn't matter what age they are. They're being approached by sex traffickers, drug addicts, prostitution. They can't even They have to be walked by an adult. They cannot walk alone on the streets.
Drop it citywide, no signage needed.
So
They get a statute.
if that's something you could look into, that would be awesome for us, or I could look into.
Some of these encampments, they're not ADA compliant because they'll take them the entire sidewalk. I'm like, if I was in a wheelchair, this is bad. If I was a woman jogger or a woman commuter, I had to figure out how to reroute myself to avoid some of these places. This is safety.
Child safety.
And it is very challenging for our officers because they get calls from you to come and deal with these problems, and they're very busy to begin with, and so they can't get there as fast as they'd like to. They've got constant pressure on them because they know when they come to talk to you about a real problem that you have that they'd like to help you with, there's a whole list on the computer in their car of other problems waiting for them to go try to help with. And then there's a sense that maybe the amount of resources that are available to us to deal with these real problems that used to be available to us maybe aren't
Well, I'd
anymore.
like for you to have this. This is about a child that was mauled by a dog from a homeless squatter. She was actually there's two staple. I didn't make copies for this because it's pictures of the child's body.
I can't read anything without my glasses.
Yeah,
but
that's fine. I just want you to have it. But this
Yeah.
is happening more and more and more in our community, and I'm speaking for about 35 families right now that have asked me to come tonight, and I am begging for any kind of help that we can have for the safety of our children to get to and from school.
One of the things, and I don't mean to interject in
And I want
Chris's
to
time.
thank you, because I know you guys are working hard, but I'm asking for help.
And I would say, with all that we've said, it's not doom and gloom. This is not doom and gloom. We're not at the end of the trail.
Yeah.
But I believe one young lady back there said, well, what can we do because it's all politics? Okay, people started this country way back when with just a group of people that went and said, we're going to do these things. We have to get the neighborhoods together. We have to get the neighborhood associations together. The neighborhood associations need to band together. Put away whatever differences you have and find the similarities that you have to work together. Because I will tell you, if you go, and I understand what you're saying, I understand what you're saying about city council and the commissioners, but if you go 100 deep, and you have the same message, and you're going to say, 2020 is a national election cycle. We will be out there watching you, and we will see what you do in this next year to alleviate some of the problems that we have. And if that's not going to happen, we're going to make it our job to make sure that you don't get our support. And when all the neighborhood associations say, we're not going to support candidate E, F, or G, they're not going to like that. And when the unions are together with the neighborhood associations saying, we're not going to support E, F, and G because the Lents Neighborhood Association and the Montevilla Neighborhood Association and the Foster Neighborhood Association aren't supporting you, we're not going to support you either. That's the way it has to be. Because if we don't do that, we're going to continue this vicious cycle of promises, and then when the constituents are taken care of with the big money, the people who roll up their sleeves every day and go to work, who pay their taxes for these programs, for these resources, for these buildings, for all these other things, are going to be in the same place they are in. So it's not all doom and gloom, and I don't think Chris is here saying that, and I'm not here saying that, but what I am saying is you have the opportunity and you have the power to make a difference. We have an election cycle in 2020. As long as you can get together with all the neighborhood associations, and I think that's the best way to do it, and the business associations in the city, and the unions will join in with you because a lot of you are in unions, will join in with you and sit with you, and we will make sure that the people who aren't doing the things they need to do, which is taking care of you, don't make a bunch of promises. The only promises they need to make is we're going to take care of you. When you give me input on something like the homeless situation, when you give me input on something like gang violence, when you give me information on something like child welfare, when you give me information about drug dealing, we're going to act on it. We're going to find a way to do that. But you have to be the ones to facilitate it. They're not going to listen to Daryl. They're not going to listen to Chris. They're going to listen to the people who can make a difference in the voting and the national elections in 2020. And that's what we have to do. I know it's not easy. Everybody here has jobs. People run businesses, and I understand that. But for all of you, to all your well-being, for all of your sanity, for your children, for the children in your neighborhoods, for the elderly, no matter who it is, all of us who are affected by crime, who are affected by the livability issues in our neighborhoods, who are affected by the lack of resources for people that we need to get resources for, this is your chance, your opportunity to make a difference. And I know it sounds corny, but it's the only way it will change, because if not, we will go through this vicious cycle every year for decades and decades, and we'll continue this.
But the police are criminalized, so how do we do that? I mean, you guys are constantly criminalized, so people are going to have that in their mindsets. So they don't
But you know what? As I go to neighborhood association meetings and business association meetings, we're not criminalized by the lion's share of people in the city of Portland. Right. Like I said, it's the squeaky wheel. It's the squeaky wheel. And so that in itself tells me one thing. We get enough people together and go to City Hall and go to the county commissioners and say, we want support for our law enforcement, we want support for our DAs. Yes, it's going to take some time. Yes, it's going to take some people, but that's the only way we'll be able to do it. If we give up hope now, if we let it go now, it will continue in a vicious cycle.
And, you know, somebody asked about what you can do and Daryl Scott comes at it from a perspective that
I can say things that you can't say.
But I have some suggestions too. You know, and I'll give you an example. This morning I went to go get a cup of coffee on my way into work. I come into work in uniform because I'm on call and I have a take-home car. Guy, I couldn't stop him before he did it because he was in line in front of me, bought me a cup of coffee. I went because I forgot lunch, and I went to go get lunch before I came here, and I had to explain to this kid who makes minimum wage at Subway that no, I don't want you to pay for half of my lunch. I got this, right? What that, and I bring this example up twice in one day, right? Yeah. I bring this example up for a reason, because this community supports its police, and we know that.
Right on. Yes.
That support is quiet, but it's there. If you wanted to be more public about your sentiment, about your police, that wouldn't hurt. Because these men and women, I mean, for me, I'm towards the end of my career, I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about our young officers, especially, and our officers who go out every day and do this work in our community. They need that, and they need to hear that. And so, you know, we're your public servants. So if you have strong feelings about the service you're getting, and if we get it wrong, hold us accountable, because we want to get it right. But also, take a little of that support we heard.
Well, I just say that we're raised in Portland, so I remember the Villa and Old School, and I would like hang out with gangster, whatever, and we called you the Popos, right? And so it was kind of like, I come from that mindset.
It works, it's going to rain.
Well, listen, I come from that mindset, I get burglarized. And then I get burglarized and crime happens, and all of a sudden, I was told a liberal woman that just hasn't had crime happen to them yet. That's exactly what happened to me. Now all of a sudden, crime happened to me, and I'm like, wait, we need our police. Wait, I need them. And so I'm having this epiphany while all of my friends, my dad, and everyone's like, oh my God, she's horrible, you know, because I'm conservative now, because I support you guys. I mean, you can be a liberal and support the police, normally it doesn't happen, because I come from that. So that's why I say that, like, organically, through pain and suffering, you know, and fear, have I come to now support you guys. So I say that because I see also there's still a lot of people that don't support you, because I hear it, right? So I guess I want that, and I'm very vocal about supporting law enforcement, but there is a lot of anti-police stuff still going.
There's anti-police, but can I offer just one word of caution? Criticism of the police is not anti-police.
Oh, that's cool.
So I want you to criticize us when we get it wrong, and hold us accountable when we get it wrong, because that's policing in a democracy, that we're accountable to you.
Yeah.
However, to your point, yes, there is a lot of really unproductive sentiment out there that we push against in our own organization, because that affects our officers on a day-to-day basis, and that's all they hear, because those are the only people talking.
Yep.
And just to address your concern, I've been working the street in this precinct in Lents mostly for 17 years, so appreciate your concern, but you're absolutely right. I know that 99% of the people that I encounter out there support us. We all know that. I think the chief made a great point when he said it's about organization. When I ride ATVs on the trail and run into Shar and everybody out here, I get 1,000 thank yous and 2 scowls. That's really good. I love it. So we know that you guys have a mask. All of us on the street, we're out here for you. I've been here for 17 years, and I'm going to be here for 8 more because of you guys.
Right on. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes. One last thing real quick is that years ago, we used to have a graffiti database. It actually got taken away. what happened? Graffiti is skyrocketing. How do we get the graffiti database brought back?
I think the graffiti abatement program left us for what used to be known as the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, right? At some point, I think our NERD officers probably are way better. Ask, if you talk to these guys,
you can still go on there. The graffiti abatement program is through ONI, and ONI has changed. And I don't even know what they're called.
It's the Office of Community and Civic Life.
It's kind of like that bad plumber that changed his name and went away.
So, and I know at some point you guys got to end this, but I will say this. If you sign up, we will send you the video of Wapato. Share it, because people need to see this, because I know you haven't been there. I've been there several times, and the facility is pristine. Again, like I said, yeah, you're right. Homelessness is not going to end, but what we can do is resolve a lot of the issues in the neighborhoods, a lot of issues on the other resources, so that we can separate the people who actually have a need and the resource-resistant people and deal with them in the way we need to deal with them, but make the neighborhood livability issues better, make the issues better. We all have people in our families, whether, you know, I'm not originally from Portland, but people in our families who have been addicted, who have had issues, and wish that resources were available to them to be able to help them out, as opposed to incarceration. And not because if they do something that they need to be incarcerated for, that's one thing, but if they're just being incarcerated because there's nowhere else to put them, there's no other resources for them, there's nothing else to do with them, that's not the right thing, because they're just going to let them back out again, and they're not going to be any better off than they were before they went in. So, and it doesn't make it any more helpful for you.
Hi, I'm Neola Larson, and this is more for all of the officers. If you would like to talk to me later after the meeting, I'm a volunteer with Fort Kennedy. It's a day center for homeless veterans, and they are doing a fabulous job in helping people. They help them get home. They can go in there and take a shower, get clean clothes, get their hair cut, talk to a lawyer who comes in once a week, get their resume together. They get no government funding because there's too many strings attached. And the woman who started this was in the Army for 22 years. And I'll tell you, if I ever get in a barroom fight, I want her behind me. She's 6 feet tall, she's not fat, just she's a big woman and got a mouth on her like I've never heard from anybody. But she whips those people into shape. And they need support, they need volunteers, there's all kinds of ways to help. I went by a restaurant today and got 2 big bags of day-and-a-half-old bread to take into them. They do just wonderful things, and I've got business cards here, and I can tell you more about what they do if you would like to talk afterwards.
Thank you.
Did anyone else have questions, comments?
Oh, no, mine was just, it was basically, again, I wanted to kind of give you guys this. I pulled this off of the Lents crime report. In the last 10 days, shooting, assault, theft, shooting, assault, theft. And that was just kind of one of my things was, she was talking about, you know, resources and such, but I think it's definitely the squeaky wheel that gets greased, because, you know, street racers were doing donuts at Swan Island, and now they have a full detail because it was all over the news.
They killed somebody though.
Can I?
Yeah.
When we have a second, can I
The street
touch
racer
on that?
that killed somebody, that was in Beaverton. It wasn't at T5, it wasn't at Swan Island doing donuts in a parking lot. I understand that that's an important issue, but yet they took away our ATV detail that was Teague or Tide. You know,
It's not gone.
Well,
Tide is gone. He's been replaced. We're still there. We just it's a
at the time.
We don't have.
At the time, I talked to Tide in Walmart, and he said, because I was there when Multnomah County Jail, I was standing next to him, said, please quit arresting people, we don't have room. And it just seemed like they got taken away to solve the problem. My issue is, it's not even the street racing, it just so happens Swan Island above it is money. It's Old Portland. And everywhere.
How many do you have on your detail?
ATVs. We have 3 machines. There's 4 of us left. So Sergeant Tide was my sergeant. We had 6 people. We have 4 now because of the resignation and injury. We have 3 machines. I mean, it's not gone. We just don't do it as much as we used to, and it's mostly a staffing thing. We're being pulled in so many different directions. We're actually going out again next week. We were out a couple of weeks ago, so we go out as much as we can, but it's,
Guy lives 3 houses from
we can't steal people off the street very often because Lieutenant Hayes doesn't have people to give us because he's got staff districts. So we've got, and they're resource intensive, so the jail didn't tell us not to do it. They just said, hey, please tell us ahead of time, because when you bring in 20 people, it kills us. So that was our bad for not telling them ahead of time we were going to bring a busload down. So there's a lot of...
We can stay on the bus for a while.
Right. You have 6 in an airplane to babysit some stupid, cars that are doing donuts in a parking lot at Swan Island.
Can I contextualize that?
Hey, guys.
What I'm getting is there's 2 different street racers. There's the drifter boys, that's what you're seeing. And then there's the true street racers that you don't see.
Right.
And if you know the right people to get into that whole group, you'll rarely see that street racing happen. But the drifters is where.
What does the chief know about it?
Yeah, let the chief answer.
One of the reasons why we needed to address street racing is they aren't just on Swan Island. The problem that we had is when they decide to shut down the Fremont Bridge and back everybody up and do donuts with people sitting on cars. I think we had a traffic fatality on Marine Drive involving these people at one point. And for as much as we used the airplane to police street racing, actually we approved a whole bunch of money out of our budget over the last 2 summers for patrol flights. So for every one of those street racing missions, I have lost count, and I wish Josh Goldschmidt was here because he would know the exact number of patrol flights that we've used with the airplane, where it's flying over your neighborhood supporting these men and women doing their work. So I get the resource needs, and I totally hear where you're coming from, and I'm not at all trying to minimize your issues, because this right here looks like some pretty big public safety issues to me, and I hear you loud and clear. But I do want to just mention that it wasn't just a matter of them street racing on Swan Island. We have had fatalities in the city of Portland from these people. We've also had complaints from people in inner southeast with the activity that goes on before the street races. We've had problems with them trespassing on private property in businesses and engaging in really risky behavior. The airplane, actually, other than the personnel costs of the airplane, that thing is actually pretty cheap to run, but we have made a really big investment in air support for patrol, particularly to help get at this too. We really have, but
because I'm honestly, I've gone down there in the last couple of weekends in order to kind of see, because I just noticed every Monday. I'm like, probably because there's no shooting. And so last 2 weekends, and they're down there for like, Saturdays and Sundays, and you guys are just running around chasing them, babysitting them, and they're not, the ones that are I don't know about the fatality that was on the drive, but the other ones that are happening are like in southeast Portland and over here and over there. It's not that. It's like 2 totally separate things, yet all the money is just dumped over to.
Well, they will. A lot of it is the same group of people, and they'll go on social media and they'll try and figure out where we're not, and they'll say, "All right, everybody, go over to Marine Drive now," and then they'll go over there, and the cops are here. Let's go shut down the top deck of the Fremont Bridge. And so that phenomenon has gotten pretty lawless, and that's also not East Precinct Resources that are doing that. It's North Precinct Resources and traffic.
We've had air support tracking robbery suspect last week. We've had them a lot lately. They don't help us out.
Well, the only thing we see is what's on the news.
Sure.
That's why
I get it. That's why I'm here. Is to help. Yeah, I can. Call me.
So can I add just a piece to that? And it's exactly that perspective piece. What you see on TV is only a fraction of what's actually going on behind the scenes. The fact that the airplane spends a huge amount of time working with patrol to ensure that we're chasing stolen cars, we're chasing where the last shooting was, all of that doesn't get reported because they choose what they report, and so you get to see what is happening, and you don't get to see the bigger picture that is actually what's going on behind the scenes.
No, that's right, and I appreciate the clarity. We brought this. We looked at 10 days. We're like, really?
Well, and what other conclusion would you draw from that? So I get it. That's one of the reasons why we're here is to help spread information.
Staff, but yet you guys have your staff back, you know, and so there's,
but also I think you look at our gun reduction violence team, I used to be gangs, I can't get it right, it's a gang team. Sorry. If you look at how many guns they get every week, every month, you'll see they're out there working. I mean, people are out there working on this stuff. It's just that the gang violence was encapsulated to one side of town, and as we got gentrification, it got moved out. And where did it? I mean, it's just moved out all over. So they're going in a bunch of different directions also, but they're out there every day. They're looking for people who are committing crimes. And unfortunately, because of the political backdrop at the auditor's office, who says we cannot no longer track the people we know are committing crimes. We can do it with sex traffickers, we can do it with pedophiles, we can do it with everybody else, but we can't do it with people who are in associated organizations that commit crimes. Because if we do, the backlash comes from the political backdrop of the city. And again, it affects the neighborhoods and the people who are out here every day, because let me tell you what, when some of those young men go out there and they start shooting off guns and shoot multiple bullets in the neighborhoods, either at somebody's car or at somebody, they're putting everybody in that neighborhood in danger, because they're not good shots, number one, and number two, if they were, we wouldn't have a gang problem in the city. And number two, they're endangering people who they don't even know are in houses, watching television and wherever it may be. But our team is out there every day, and they're doing awesome work. And they actually have, what do they have? They have monthly meetings where they actually talk about their statistics.
Bi-weekly meetings where we go over every incident of gunshots fired that we've had reported in the previous 2 weeks, and collaborate between the gun violence team, the 3 precincts. I think there's someone from the DA's office there, and just try and make connections between cases and
they're actually making arrests of people even after they have fired. They're making arrests on people who, after they have fired shots, all based on information from the neighborhoods or based on evidence and everything, and then go and grab people up who are, not even involved at that point in time in a violence they were involved in. So they're doing a great job. It is just the resources that are not available.
Also of interest to this group, you might not know. So our new commander, our personnel in NERD kind of dropped a little bit, not for her fault, like I said, an injury and a resignation, but she made a personnel investment in the street crimes team, which I was part of the last one that got disbanded 8 or 10 years ago. So we have a sergeant and 4 very active officers out there for the last couple of months, and they are getting a lot of drugs, which is great, but a lot of guns, which is really, really great. They're doing really good work. They're out tonight. They're out every night, and she made that investment to address the violent crime, and it's working really well, and it will continue to work in the future. So that is a good thing on the East Precinct front that I forgot to mention.
But the media doesn't pick all that up, so.
I live right in Mill Park neighborhood, and I don't expect you to really be able to see this. This is off the police website, and that white spot right there is the safest. It's surrounded by the most dangerous. The only other place that's dangerous at is downtown Portland. But that white spot where I live, it wasn't always that way. In the fall, after Wheeler took office, he's holding a PR powwow down there at City Hall saying Portland is not a tent city, and he actually made sure that I wasn't in on that meeting. Well then, I got my 3 minutes, and I told him, that you would sacrifice my neighborhood and this entire city for another rung on your political ladder. And I says, you're down here having your powwow. Portland's not a tent city, and I can open up my front door and see one. And it was, the whole hillside there, right across from Floyd Light Middle School. And, you got these streets, just totally tense. Women were getting black eye and a bloody nose. As I told Ted, look at the face of homeless in the city. So then I decided to do the same thing that these homeless do. They were patrolling up and down the street with a baseball bat. The acronym COP, it stands for Constable on Patrol. So you know what? I pretended I was one. So I go out there. I've been out there anywhere from 1 to 5 times a day, and that's why that area now is the safest in the city on the police website, Mill Park. You see, I live right next there, and there's a school, and I utilize the 1,000-foot thing. And I remember at the top, when I realized that Ted Wheeler was tying the police hands, that then I'm up there with the principal of the school, and we're shaking hands with zero tolerance. And I tell you what, Ted probably wouldn't want to know all the things I do to clean that up. Finally, he did. He came out and took a walk with me, and I had stories to tell and not even going to get into it. And just yesterday, I'm meeting with Ken Richardson, the superintendent, Dave Lowe's schools, and we are tight. So you got to put some skin in the game to get the job done.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a two-part question. How many identified gangs are there in the Portland area? And do we have any MS-13 here?
That's something you're going to have to ask the gang team. They are experts in that. Okay. That's something that would have to be asked to the gang team. And you can request them to come to your neighborhood association meetings, and they would do it. They would give you all
Gun violence response team. Yeah, if you're interested in that, get a hold of me.
Gun violence response team.
I can see if we can. Yeah, just email me if you want to see if they can come out, or maybe we can have one of your meetings. Sure.
Is the game team allowed to use ICE resources?
Tell them the Lents gang wants to see it.
Oh, that's here's coming out of the line is that, again, I know we're not bringing political, but she can't say that well, but there's a political agenda that's very important to a different country. And we are trying to calmly, respectfully work through rules and not try to tie your hands and all this, but we need federal help.
We get federal help, though.
We signed up on a city terrorism.
I know we've left the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which we're, I think, did San Francisco leave that too? Where not a lot of major cities have, I realize that. But we work, for example, the Gun Violence Response Team works hand in hand with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms on firearms traces. We work with the FBI Safe Streets Task Force. We work with the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. We work with our federal, our Drugs and Vice Division routinely works cases with the DEA. We have a really good relationship right now with our U.S. Attorney for Oregon, Bill Williams, who, when we had the protest on August 17th, Bill Williams took it upon himself to help us get some resources to help deal with that. So I would just suggest that actually we work pretty well with our federal partners, and by and large we have a mutually beneficial relationship with them. The whole question of local police cooperation with immigration enforcement is something that really gets resolved above my pay grade, but I will tell you, I'm responsible for patrol operations in this city. I can't take that mission on. The federal government has resources to enforce federal rules, like immigration rules. That's not our role here in local law enforcement. And no matter what you think of that issue or the importance of that issue, we don't have the resources to enforce those rules anyway. That's what the federal government is for. And so we don't want to get in that business.
You have the database that you've been cut off from that database. You can't share resources. You can't share knowledge.
Well, we can't give them certain resources of ours to help them with immigration enforcement, strictly immigration enforcement. But if they're doing some criminal work, if the FBI calls and says we want the information you have on this person we think is robbing banks, we can give them that. We just can't give them information strictly for the purposes of immigration. That's the only real limit on us when it comes to federal law enforcement cooperation, but we do have a multi-level partnership with the federal law enforcement authorities.
Okay. Not heavy. All right.
This was fun.
Thank you so much. Does anyone, this is your last chance, have an announcement or one last question?
I do have one thing that I want to say. Is I went to one of those meetings, it was the one about Wapato, when we talked, and I saw Carl David there. And the thing is, yeah, you get 3 minutes to talk, but it's very disjointed, and people repeat themselves, and they repeat themselves, and they don't get into the meat of the matter. And I think it'd be a great idea if everybody got together and it had a continuity from one person to the next. So you really got to say a lot instead of everybody trying so hard to get into it and not getting anywhere.
Yes.
So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.